Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the Metis podcast. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the Procon. But first, the Metis Minute.
So today's Metis Minute is about dip switches. Dip switches serve several functions on Mitsubishi equipment. In some cases, dip switches are used to set the model and capacity for the units, and sometimes dip switches are used to set function settings, like target evaporator temp or high heating performance. When trying to determine the proper position of these dip switches, be sure to refer to the unit-specific service manual. A little tip, when referring to the manual, a dip switch position, the black box will indicate the position of that dip switch. Some dip switches are permanent position, meaning that in order to set the particular function, the corresponding dip switch must always be in the on position. However, some dip switches are temporary positions. For example, when setting function settings on a City Multi or Smart Multi unit, SW6-10 and SW4 switches are only on temporarily, and once set using the SWP button, can return to the off position. Additionally, SW4 can be utilized during operation to monitor live data like pressures and temperatures using the LED screen at the outdoor unit. When setting permanent dip switches, be sure to power off the unit long enough to let the capacitors discharge, set the dip switches, and then return power to the unit. This will ensure the system has accepted the new setting. Thanks for listening, and let's start the show.
The Metis Tech Show.
Welcome to the Metis Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
I like how you guys bounce back and forth between heat pump talk and food talk.
The Metis Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
So, Ed, tell me about this restaurant, because I'm intrigued.
So I took my kids to this place in, I think it's Doraville,
Okay.
but it's right on the top end of 285 in Atlanta, and it's called Kura Revolving Sushi. And the best part is that it's also in the same shopping center as a giant Super H Mart. Mm-hmm. So you can go look at like all the Asian grocery store stuff. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's massive. So while you're waiting for your table, anyway, but Revolving Sushi, it's got all the sushi on the conveyor belt. And so you're watching everything go by, and then it's got, a touch screen, so it'll send a shuttle with your special order straight to your table.
Oh, wow.
But my kid's favorite part is that you take your plate and put it in a slot right at the end of your table, and that's how it calculates your bill. And every 5 plates, the screen over your table will show some sort of like anime superhero cartoon of like fighting the monster.
Huh.
And so when you put your 15th plate in, like whatever battle or fight has been going on, like the good guy wins. And then, do you remember like the little quarter toy dispensers?
Yeah.
Like you chunk, right? And it dispenses a little capsule with a toy. Well, that happens at the end of the cartoon, right? So the monster is vanquished, the superhero wins, and then you hear a chunk, and like you see this like plastic capsule roll down like a hamster tube to your table. And so it's an incentive to eat as much sushi as you can.
Like I need an incentive.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So wait a minute. So how many rolls would be on a typical plate? Are we talking like 15 or 2 or 3?
No, it's small samples. So it's like $2.50 a plate or $2.75 a little plate.
Okay.
And then you've got 2 or 3 rolls, or a couple pieces of nigiri or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really good.
Now, how is the actual sushi? So the concept
it's
sounds
really
awesome.
good. It's really good.
Great. Yeah.
They used to have a place like that up in Natick, Mass, at the mall near the office, and it wasn't like in the food court. It was like in the middle of like one of the hallways where they connect, and the conveyor belt would just go by you, and I've mentioned this before. I've been waiting my whole life for food to come by me on a conveyor belt, and it was very nice. And the plates would be color-coded, and you would take it, and it would make its way back to the kitchen, and they have these chips in there. They know how long it's been out there, so they'll take it off. And like a red plate is one price, a blue plate's another one. And then they come and count up your plates at the end. But this thing with the It sounds really interactive, like the way you're going, and the sushi's good.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, this is like double whammy because it's not only is it food that comes on a conveyor belt, but it's also a challenge to see how much you can eat, which I
Right.
feel like
15
right up
plates,
your
though.
alley.
It's like a double dog dare. It's like, you know.
And that's at every table. They have these mechanisms at.
Yeah. It's every single table. So even like the little single seat bar, you can put your plate in the slot. It's pretty fun.
I'm loving that. I go.
Nice.
How long would it take me to get there, like from the office, let's say?
Probably 25 minutes, but it would be kind of on your way to or from the airport.
Oh,
Okay, well that's what we can do on the way to
yeah,
the airport.
on the way back this
yeah.
time. Yep,
And they're open for lunch because
Yes.
yeah, that's it. When we next
it's
time
decided.
it's decided. It's in.
Yeah, we're gonna try it out.
What's your bill after 15 plates?
It doesn't matter. You get
Oh,
the toy.
toys well worth
What's
it.
the
All right.
What's the toy like? What did you get?
Oh, it's the same garbage you get in the little plastic. It's not the toy. It's the journey to the toy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
The
doesn't matter what the
accomplishment.
toy is. It's just
It's
I've
the
accomplished something and I
Like
win.
the space monster was vanquished, and you did it by eating
Yeah.
until you felt bad.
So let's review. You get sushi, you save the world, and you get a prize.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's
Genius.
good. And you accepted a challenge.
Yeah.
I'll forget that part.
Speaking of getting prizes, this is completely unrelated, but you sparked my memory of it. I went to Staples the other day and I made a return, and the cashier, when I made my return, said, "You get a gold star." And she had handed me a sticker, and it was a yellow sticker that she had drawn a star on. And I had heard her in line saying it to everybody. So she was giving out gold stars to everybody. And I thought, like, oh, it must be a promotional thing. And then I got to the line and realized that she was just doing it for fun, handing out stickers.
Okay, so
It's
it
awesome.
means nothing. When everybody gets one, it doesn't mean as much. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for listening to the Metis Tech Show. My name is Paul Shavs. With me today is Bryn Raptor. Bryn, say hi.
Hello.
And joining us, two special guests. We got Colin O'Halloran.
Hello.
Colin, say hi.
Hello.
And once again, Ed Blair. Ed, say hi.
Hey, howdy.
Okay, so Colin, let's start with you. Tell us what you do for Mitsubishi in a nutshell.
I joined Mitsubishi in 2017, so I'm working on my 8th year, and various roles along the way. Right now, I'm a senior engineer working for the Applied Projects team. Right now, it's mostly internal tech support, a lot of tech support for Train and end users, residential and commercial, and do a lot of startups in tech support as well with QHV systems, getting all of the components configured and system making hot water. So I'll we wear many hats in this group, and wherever we're needed, we're considered the gap fillers.
Yeah.
So
All right.
we're the special teams for Metis, and we'll help out with applications, tech support, any kind of pre-install. Like I was sizing units the other day, helping with clearances and things like that. So wherever we're needed, we'll help out.
Right, good. And Ed, you've been on at least once, maybe twice before, I think.
Yeah.
So just let's refresh everyone's memory. And what do you do?
We'll be right back. Hey, listeners, if you like the Metis Tech Show, you should check out our YouTube channel called the Metis Training Network. That's METUS Training Network. Head on over to the Metis Training Network for tons of videos and programming made for HVAC professionals just like you. We've got technical training tips, HVAC program updates, and episodes of our new HVAC talk show called The Comfort Zone. Of course, you also get to catch up on more episodes of the Metis Tech Show as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the Metis Training Network today. Now, back to the Metis Tech Show.
I'm a senior manager of sales engineering for the Applied Projects group. So basically, I'm a controls nerd who does PowerPoint and helps try to sell equipment. And when hard stuff comes my way, I typically tend to punt and send it to Colin. So,
Okay. Now, do you prefer the term nerd or geek?
yes, absolutely.
Okay, either one. All right.
Interchangeable.
Yeah. And today we're going to talk about something that I literally know nothing about. I can barely spell it, but it's the Procon.
Absolutely.
Right. So, which one of you wants to tell us? Let's go start from a very high level. What is a Procon, and when would I need one.
Yeah, so the Procon is either a BACnet or a Modbus interface, and it connects to the indoor unit at CN105, right? So that's our accessory port. And so the most common example is if I have a larger building management system BMS that's got BACnet to VAVs or rooftops or something, but I've got a single, P-series unit cooling a phone closet or IT closet. The Procon lets me take that single unit and it gives me an option to add it to that BACnet network that's already in place. So BACnet MSTP is a 2-wire communication, right? And it's a serial, just like MNet, but, low power. And we don't have that communication capability natively in the equipment, so we use the Procon to add that to it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a 2-wire connection for Modbus or BACnet, and the installing it the way that you wire your COM bus is important because it has to be a daisy chain. I've seen a few instances where they install it as like a star topology. They just freely run the wire wherever. It has to be an end and a beginning to a bus.
Right.
So when you're wiring it, first of all, you can't use MNet wire. I've seen that. It'll work, but the gauge of the wire is too big. It's a 16 gauge wire. For BACnet, the spec typically calls for a 22 gauge. That is very small.
Yeah.
And I like to see either a 20 gauge or an 18 gauge. 2-wire twisted shielded pair. It has to be twisted shielded pair.
Okay.
For BACnet or Modbus. So both protocols are RS-45, so they'll work on that wire. That's why the Procon can do either.
Okay.
And the benefit to BACnet, the biggest benefit is that the points are discoverable and you can download all of the point names. So compared to Modbus, if I'm a building management system guy, I have to program point by point in Modbus. I have to sit there and type each name, sit there and type each address. So BACnet is preferred, I'd say, by most contractors.
Yeah. Now, so if I, am in a situation where I need to get either an M or P series unit onto BACnet or onto Modbus, is all I need the Procon? Can I just plug that in and I have my 2-wire terminals to run through everything?
Just as long. The majority of indoor units have a CN105 port, but that's the first thing you want to check is, does it have a CN105? If it does, then you have that capability of plugging in the Procon, and then from there it's wiring it to your system, your computer, or you don't need to have a building management system. You can just have a discovery tool.
Sure.
So for BACnet, the most popular discovery tools, Yabe, YABE. It can be downloaded for free off the internet from SourceForge. That's the company that hosts it. The other one for Modbus is called ModScan. It's an old program from the 90s, really remained unchanged. And that might be a little digging online, but you can find this. So if you want to see the points in a Procon, you can use these utilities just to display the raw data. And then from there, if you wanted to pass that information along to a building manager system, you can. That those tools are just used to confirm that the points are working and they're reading what you expect.
Something I want to add here is if I've got a whole city multi-system and I've got a central controller, you don't need a Procon, right? Because typically you're going to do BACnet through the central controller. The Procon is for the onesie twosies, the spot cooling. It's you do one or the other, right? So if I've got a single system, Procon is all you need. If I've got a whole city multi-system, you don't need Procons. Right. It's actually going to be easier and less expensive than buying 15 Procons just to go through the central controller.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a level at which we get these jobs where, hey, we got 15 Procons, and it would have been a lot easier if you just bought a central controller with a SW BACnet license. Now you get BACnet over IP, and more points. It does provide you more points than the Procon does.
So it sounds like there is no limit to the amount of Procons you can use on a particular daisy chain?
There is.
There is, okay.
Yeah, there's a hard limit of 127 devices.
Okay.
After you hit 30 to 35 devices, you start to have difficulty with communication.
Sure.
So I've never seen anything north of 40 devices on a bus. That would be that'd be crazy. You just have to run multiple buses at that point.
Yeah. So it is, the use case is just getting like typically one or two, maybe 3 units onto like a BMS system.
Right. And in terms of mixing manufacturers on a bus, either BACnet or Modbus, it's always best practice to isolate your manufacturers on one bus, if possible. Mm-hmm. Because even though the BACnet protocol and Modbus protocol are well defined, each manufacturer goes and does their own thing and how they transmit these packets, and more often than not, you end up with comm issues because one device is talking too loudly, so to speak, and the other
conflicts.
Yeah. It's one of my professors in college described it as you can only eat when you have the fork and knife.
Right.
So you pass the fork and knife down the bus, and only each device can speak when they have the silverware. So it's a good way to look at it. So no, to get back to my original point is just best practice. So definitely all Procons on one bus. And if you have rooftop units, try your best to isolate those. But if not, it's it'll work with mixed on one bus.
Cool.
All right, so let's back up. We got a city multi-system without a central controller, right? And we got in a small server room, we got a P-series unit doing that. Is that when I would use a Procon for that?
So you would use a Procon when you need a unit to be on a third-party BMS.
Okay.
So it integrates out to a carrier, Johnson, train, whatever.
Yeah. So in that case, that Paul just described, city multi-equipment is already on a BMS, but now we have this P-series in a server room. We want that also on the BMS, so that's when the Procon becomes handy, correct?
Yes. So if your P-series doesn't have the PAC SJ95 to be on the MNet, it might be easier, depending on where your bus is, right? Because the PAC SJ95 goes in the outdoor unit.
Right.
So if you're trying to get it somewhere indoor, CN105 to the Procon, and you're ready to rock and roll.
All right.
Awesome.
So I got a CN105 on my indoor unit. I connect the Procon. Is it plug and play? I'm done. I can walk away?
Sadly, no.
Okay.
But it is pretty easy to set up. So the first time you go through it, it might take 20 minutes. But after you get experience, practice, you roll through them, it might take you no more than 5 or 10 minutes to set up the Procon. It's pretty easy.
Sure.
All right, let's go through it.
Yeah. Are there any additional components that I need as far as like USB adapters or anything like that?
Yeah. So to make sure you're ready to go, you got to have a USB to RS-485 adapter.
Okay.
No special brand, doesn't really matter. I had a fancy one from my BMS days, but Amazon sells them for $7. It doesn't matter.
You got applause for that. Good
Yeah,
job.
somebody's clapping for Amazon.
Smart guy.
When you're configuring the Procon, you also need to know what the settings you're going to use, right? So if you've got to coordinate with your BMS contractor, say, I need this to be address 27 on the bus or address 34, whatever. They're going to give you that information, so make sure you have it before you get into the configuration.
Okay.
And the last thing that you need is the configuration software from my link tribe. So it's the Melco BEMS Mini. It's on my link tribe. You can find it there.
The configuration software that's in the manual. That's what's configured. Called.
Awesome.
So just running through the installation steps real quick. So for installation, what you're going to do is you're going to unplug it from CN105.
Okay.
So the Procon doesn't have external power. It's actually powered from the indoor unit. And you also probably want to disconnect your power from the indoor unit so you don't blow up your CN105 port. I mean, maybe you'll get lucky, maybe you won't, but that's an expensive way an easy way to not have that problem. So the next step, step number 2, is you're going to set your dip switches. So the Procon has 8 dip switches, and you're going to set dip switch number 1, number 6, and number 7 to on, right? And the position is a little weird, but there's actually some white text with an arrow that shows you which position is on, right?
Okay.
So 1, 6, and 7 to on. And what you're doing is you're putting it into a configuration mode.
Gotcha.
So really what you're doing is you're setting it to Modbus address 1, but the software that configures it speaks to the unit in Modbus, right? So once 1, 6, and 7 are on, you're going to connect your CN105 with a little pigtail out of the Procon, and you're going to connect your RS485 converter to your laptop.
Oh, okay. So this is where that USB adapter comes
Yep.
in. Got it.
Yep. So it's USB on one side, it's little 2 wires out of the other, just straight into your Procon. And remember, the Procon is powered from the indoor unit. So you will connect with the configuration software, right? And you'll be able to see like firmware settings, and you'll be able to pull up your information there. You're going to write your settings, so you'll send your Modbus address 12 or your BACnet address 7, whatever.
Sure.
You'll send all of those configuration settings down into the Procon where it will save. Then you're going to disconnect from CN105. And then this is the critical part. This is the number one call to the TSAs, is this step gets skipped and people are like, why isn't it talking? You're going to set dip switches 1 through 5 to on.
Okay.
Right? And what that does is it tells it, hey, you're going to use your software settings, ignore the dip switches, you're going to talk BACnet. And so it makes it ready to go on the BACnet bus.
Gotcha.
Right? And then you're ready to rock and roll. You should be able to discover that with your BMS, or if you don't have a BMS up yet, you can check it with your Yabe software. But at that point, all of those points are ready to be discovered.
Okay. So at that point, once you have 1 through 5, or sorry, was it 3 through 5?
1 through 5.
1 through 5 are on. Plug it or put it back into CN105, power on the system, and then at that point, you should be able to discover.
That's right. So
Awesome.
you've got 2 lights that are on the Procon that tell you what is going on. There's an ACK light and a power light.
Okay.
But you'll be able to see, I think it's 10 points or about 10 points. So you've got commands. You've got on-off command. You've got a mode command, set point command. And one thing to note is that when you plug a CN105 device, so it's true for any of our CN105 devices, that indoor unit becomes single set point. So if you've got a spec that says it's got to be dual set point, that's something to be aware of.
Sure.
But you've got fan speed, air direction, and then the temperature units. Then for inputs, you'll be able to see the on-off status, see the mode status, see the fan speed, air direction, inlet, and you'll also be able to see a 4-digit fault code.
Oh, okay.
So, Colin, do you remember what you get like a weird number if there's no fault? It's like 65,000 or something.
I believe it's all 9s.
Yeah.
4-digit.
All 9s.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
so if it's anything other than that, it'll correspond. It won't be the exact error code you'll see in a VRF system, but if you look it up in the manual, it'll correspond to a VRF error.
So you see 9s, don't panic. You see anything else, look it up.
So it sounds like probably one of the more challenging things, I think, for somebody who's installing one of these would be making sure to get those dip switches squared away ahead of time. Is that something that's listed in the manual for the Procon? Yeah.
Yeah.
So as always, you got to refer to the manual. It's going to walk you through those steps. It's not as simple as plug and play, although it's pretty darn close. Mm-hmm. So just pay attention to those steps with the dip switches to make sure that you've got that squared away. And then you should be able to start utilizing those points.
That's exactly right.
Awesome.
One of the other things that's kind of a hassle is when you're using your adapter, you've got to configure the COM port. But if you've played around with the maintenance tool software and your MN converter, it's the same hassle, right? You'll see the COM port, you'll have to choose the right COM port, otherwise it won't communicate. That's another possible sticking point.
You have to just tell it what port.
The other thing too is when you do plug in a CN105 device, the indoor board will switch from dual set point to single set point.
Yep.
So that's something that if the user was previously using dual set point and a MA controller or something like that, then you'd have to take into consideration that you're now at single set point.
Yeah, pay attention to the application. Make sure it makes sense. Now, so you have this system on BMS. You have your points. You can command operation through the BMS system.
Sure can.
Now, I know a lot of times with RS485, there's terminating resistors, things like that. Is that a requirement with this Procon as well?
Yeah, so two things to mention about that. Underneath the cover of the Procon, there's a little jumper, and you'll see it right next to the pigtail, and you can use that if you jumper is just parked, but if you put it across both pins, it's got an onboard 120 ohm terminating resistor.
Oh, okay. So it's like a built-in.
Correct. So that's an option if you want to use it. Now, personally, I would use the external resistor that all of the BMS guys are used to because that internal one isn't visible if the cover's on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a nice feature, but it's one that I personally would rather use the external resistor, and I've got a bag of them on my truck, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a better way to go because you can physically see it, and it might make it easier to troubleshoot because if you have multiple end-of-line resistors, then you're going to have comm problems.
Well, that's what I was going to ask next is, controls folks who are looking at RS-45 bus lines, they may be looking for it. And on the troubleshooting side, if they can't visually see it, they may not know. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's typically at the end of the daisy chain, correct? So
Correct. One on each end.
Right. So if I have a Procon in the middle of the daisy chain, no requirement for the resistor across the terminals or the internal.
Correct. You want to make sure that
ends.
it's parked on one pin and you don't have the jumper made.
Right.
That's typically when you have a bus of many devices, say 10, 12 devices, you absolutely have to have the EOL dually terminated on the first device and the last device on the bus. If you have 2, 3, then that resistor doesn't really have an effect. So
Gotcha.
It's more important when you see these buses of many devices, many Procons.
Cool.
One other thing to mention in the configuration, Colin was talking about, passing the knife and fork. So MSTP is master slave token passing, right? So it passes the token from each device so that device can initiate communication on the bus. That's how you have air handlers that can talk to VAVs and pumps that can talk. That's how you manage that communication in the network. There's a setting that is defaulted to 32. So it's called the max master.
Okay.
And basically you want to make sure that if you don't know what that number is, you want to set that to 127.
Okay.
So what that means is the Procon is going to keep passing the token along, and max master is a tuning setting. So if I don't have 127 devices, I've only got 40, I can set that max master to 40 and it won't look for the rest of the numbers, right? So I'm passing that token back faster.
Right.
So we want to make sure that if you don't know the answer, it's always safest to set that up to 127
Gotcha.
when you're configuring your Procon.
So this is where the 127 maximum comes in.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's the maximum for that bus. Right. So, and that's basically just saying, if I set it for 127, it's going to tell it, look all the way, go all the way through, and then send it all the way back.
You're not going to break anything.
Right.
It just, it's not optimal, but it's safest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it reminds me on maintenance too, when you're doing an equipment search, an address search, instead of just doing a manual search and clicking on 1 through 50 one at a time, just do an automatic search and search the whole thing. And you just the safe way to go in case you miss something. Yeah. So it reminds me of that. Not exactly the same, but it's the way my brain works.
Yeah, the reason you would set that max master to something other than 127 is just for timing. It's so if you have 10 devices and it's set to 127, it'll go to 11 timeout, 12 timeout, all the way up to 127. So you'll see a slight time gap.
Yeah,
a couple of seconds to us. In the computer world, that's super long.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was the next question I was going to ask: is if you don't have it set, and you do have it set to 127, and there aren't, does it slow down that comm speed?
You won't even notice.
Negligible.
It is there, but you won't notice it.
Okay.
If you are a perfectionist like me, what I'll do is, if I have 5 devices, I'll set the max master to the number of devices I have plus 1.
Sure.
So I'll go around. And it has to be set in every single device. Mm-hmm. If you set it in the first one and the next one's set to 127, it's defeated the purpose of the max master. So make sure if you wanted to set it to 6, you got to go through each device. But the problem there is if you add a device later on or 2, it's not going to be able to talk to, let's say, unit 8.
Right.
It's not going to see that because it's never going to hand it the silverware to talk.
No, so then you'd be reconfiguring everything.
Every device.
At that point.
So 127 is the safest.
Safe.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what is it set for out of the box?
32.
All right. So you would think it would be set to 127 out of the box.
You would think that, but
The best practice is have less than 35 devices or so on the bus. So 32 is a reminder that.
Well, it's less than 35.
Yeah. Cool.
So I want to talk also about the two troubleshooting lights, right? So there's two lights on the Procon. There's an AC ACK light, ACK, and there's also an RS45 ACK light. So the AC ACK light, when it's solid, it means that the Procon has power. So it's seeing that 12 volts DC out of CN105. When it's blinking, you know that it's got good communication between the Procon and the indoor unit itself. So it's talking back and forth to CN105. So you're good to go. You're halfway there. With the RS45 ACK light, again, if it's solid, all it means is that the Procon has power. And when it's blinking, you know that you've got valid BACnet or Modbus communication on that RS45.
Okay. So the blinking is the good thing.
Yes,
We
you want to
some
see
blinks.
blinking on both sides. But yeah, so the RS45 wiring, unlike the wiring for MNet or wiring for the MA controllers, is polarity sensitive. So make sure that your positive, your plus, is landed on the A terminal, which is kind of a weird designation, but it's a British product. Who knows? They're weird over there. And then your negative is on the B, and then you want to have your shield up underneath the ground terminal.
Okay.
We do have a lot of listeners in Great Britain and in England specifically, so they're nice people.
They're wonderful people.
I'm Irish, so
Oh yeah, so you are weird. Okay. So.
English people are.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay, so getting back to that polarity. If I don't keep it polarity sensitive and I swap it, what's the harm? Is it just merely a lack of communication, or is it going to cause any damage?
So it's not going to damage anything, but you're going to ruin your day troubleshooting the COM bus that doesn't work.
You're gonna a needle in the haystack. And that's best practices, even with the MNet.
Yeah.
Just be consistent. The wires not very. I'm going to say most of the time they're different colors. The two wires, and just if you put the red one on one screw, then just put the red one on that same screw for all of the indoor units. Right.
Yeah. I say I have a lot of students in class ask about that. Is MNet polarity sensitive? And I'd say no, but do it anyway.
It's a best practice.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare to troubleshoot.
You know what I will say about the shield wire is you only want to have that shield wire grounded at one location.
Right.
So if you have the shield grounded at multiple locations, you actually create an antenna.
Yeah.
And you can increase your communication issues.
Same rule with the MNet. It's
Yep.
just grounded. We just say the outdoor unit one location. Doesn't matter, but typically it's the outdoor unit.
So it's landing on the ground terminal, but that's just part of the daisy chain, right?
Yeah, it's just a
gonna
parking
run
spot.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else to add?
And I would say too that do get some requests for lost NA points, and the Procon will connect to a lost NA, but you'll get all your points on Modbus.
Okay.
So that's a pretty common tripping ground when I connected it, I discovered the points in BACnet, and I'm just not getting anything.
Yeah.
So you got to switch to Modbus, and that way, using ModScan utility.
Yeah.
You got to program point by point, and that's where you'll get your points in. So
Now, because you were last time you were on the podcast, we were talking Niagara.
Yep.
Can we see lost NA on that end through the driver?
Yeah, Niagara is just the manufacturer of the BMS platform.
Right.
Tritium's a manufacturer of Niagara.
Right.
Right. So think of Niagara as like Windows, and then anyone can make a program to run on Windows. So that's how we have Diamond Controls, which is a flavor of Niagara.
Right.
Johnson Controls has a flavor of Niagara.
Yeah.
So it all runs on the same platform. And so if you've got a third-party Distech controller that's got a BACnet bus, this is a way to pull that data into whatever you've got, that third-party system.
Right.
So BACnet is BACnet the world over.
Yes. BACnet is BACnet is BACnet.
Correct.
It's consistent.
It's the best software protocol that HVAC engineers can come up with.
I think it's got to be the most popular by far.
Yeah, at least in the U.S.
Yeah, right.
Modbus is very industrial, so you'll see Modbus in a lot of data centers, power equipment. Power meters typically have Modbus. So maybe if you've got a P series in a data center for some reason, and you didn't do the S-Mex because you were cheap. Yeah. Anyway, then maybe you'd need Modbus. But
Sure.
the configuration is basically very similar, same steps. You just have the dip switch in a different position.
All right, cool.
Yeah, the reason you'd want Modbus is if you're in a data center, power, metering, whatever, a lot of those applications require Modbus, and they say BACnet is not allowed because Modbus is more secure. So with BACnet, I can discover and control all my points with just a
good
laptop.
point. Yeah.
So there was a popular show called Mr. Robot. I don't know if you saw that. And there was an episode where it's true, guy hacked into a data center using a thermostat. He had a BACnet thermostat, plugged his laptop into it, and shut everything down in the data center. So
Wow.
after that episode, I was called into many meetings with my former company. And
Can this actually happen?
do we have BACnet in our data centers? And I explained to them that the reason we do not is because of that episode.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The potentials.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who'd
Cool.
thunk? All right. I think anything else, guys, we need to tell our listeners about Procon?
I hope not.
I hope I do.
Yeah, pretty simple device.
Yeah, I want to thank both of you. As always, whenever we have guys like you on that are wicked smart, I get a headache and my eyes gloss over. So I was listening to a good 87.5% of what you said. Good. So that's good. So thank you.
More than I expected.
Yeah, it's more than I expected, too.
So,
No, but thanks.
yeah, thank you. Why is it that sushi is the only food group that comes on a conveyor belt? Like, wouldn't it be great if there was like a cheeseburger conveyor belt restaurant? Or like pizza?
might
And
be
it's just like a
something
different
there.
topping.
Mm-hmm.
You can just like kind of pick which one you want.
But the thing with cheeseburgers and most foods is there's a lot of variables with a cheeseburger. Do you want bacon? Do you want lettuce? Do you want tomatoes? With sushi, once it's rolled and sliced, you know what's in the roll. You know what kind of roll it is.
Right.
Pretty much, I don't know if this is true, but I think a dragon roll is a dragon roll is a dragon roll. And, my favorite is eel and cucumber. I think it's the same. It may taste slightly different. But
I agree, but hear me out. If an In-N-Out burger came across on a conveyor belt, how much would you care what was on it?
well, In-N-Out Burger's got to be the double-double.
Has to be.
Has to be the
You
double-double.
just let it go right by.
And what do they call the fries when they put all the stuff on it?
Gross.
The animal style.
No, animal style fries. Yeah, that's all it's got to be. Yeah.
Gross.
You don't like
Keep
In-N-Out?
your Thousand Island dressing off of my French fries.
Off of my anything except what is it, a Reuben?
Oh, no, I like Reuben's. No, but double-double? You don't like that? No.
I mean, it's in and out. It's fast food. I don't care.
Yes, but it's a good fast food. I'd much rather have that than a McDonald's or a Burger King.
You guys go to your In and Out. I'll see you at Chick-fil-A.
Okay, now that's a whole different thing. You can't compare. That's apples and oranges.
Chick-fil-A sauce that different than Thousand Island?
Chick-fil-A, it's the same.
Yes, Chick-fil-A sauce is like a mustard-based sauce.
See, I'm not crazy about
I
Chick-fil-A.
don't do Chick-fil-A sauce. That's gross. My kids do that.
Yeah.
No,
For
Chick-fil-A is
children.
good by itself. You don't need any. If you need sauce on the food, then something's wrong with the food.
God's chicken.
Yes.
All right,
They're not open on Sunday, so it's,
thank you guys.
Thank you guys very much.
See you in the next one.